Okay, welcome to the Gaggle. This is part two of our conversation with notable national litigator Robert Barnes, who incidentally was involved in the Covington case. So if there's a high-profile case going, Robert Barnes is sure to be taking part in it. We were talking about the appeal to suburban women voters. And that's been a long-standing issue, as you know, with the Republicans. Ever since the 1990s, when we first heard about this, the importance of the gender gap, and that the crucial demographic is the suburban women. And as you remember, there were a number of female candidates who were presented as the future of the Republican Party, one of whom was Christy Todd Whitman, the former governor of New Jersey, who is now a never-Trumper. So this is a long-standing issue, that there is this group, the suburban women, that the Republicans are failing to win over.
But don't you think, George? I think it's a caricature of suburban white women. I think it's suburbia. I think that's really the demographic here. And basically, and I'm going to agree with Robert, is that I think their inclination is to go with Trump. They need permission to vote for Trump. And that's where so this is where this diversity comes out. And don't get me wrong. I mean, the people that they have brought out of color at the convention are awesome people. Okay. So, I mean, the thing is that I don't see it as tokenism, is that, and I can't remember the young gentleman's name, the African-American man, but he just shot at Biden and said, I don't need your permission because I know who I am. And we're not all alike.
Okay. And the way I see it is, it was good to include them, but they should have been secondary in the messaging, because what got Trump elected were two issues that the establishment Republican Party doesn't like to talk about. And it's trade and it's non-interventionism. And it's what got those working class, historically, ancestrally populist, often left populist voters in upper Midwest to swing to Trump. And like, for example, here's a guy who can say, I mean, some of my friends on the left have been saying, first president not to start a new war in almost forever, to not intervene in a foreign country over the top and forever. Now, he hasn't gone anywhere near as far as I would have liked to see him, but it's still, if you compare to what a President Hillary would have looked like, it's extraordinary. He should be talking about that all the time. He's the guy trying to pull down. He didn't go into Syria. He didn't go into Libya. He didn't further troops in Iraq. He's talking about trying to pull troops out of Iraq, trying to pull troops out of Afghanistan. He didn't take the bait and ultimately go into Venezuela. I mean, he did the lame press conference with the fake president, but he didn't do the things that a lot of people wanted him to do, that if Pence was president, it would have happened. If Hillary was president, it would have happened. And if Joe Biden becomes president, it will happen. And so, but that's barely talked about. You know, Matt Gaetz mentions it briefly. But a lot of these guys were not in the key primetime slots. In the States, it's if you're not on between 10 and 11 Eastern, half the country doesn't see you, because that's the only time the networks are covering. So I would like a lot more talk about trying to end the endless wars, and how he has actually delivered more than almost any. I mean, Obama promised more peace, and he gave us Libya and partially Syria. W was supposed to be the less interventionist guy compared to Gore, and then he gave us the debacle of Iraq and Afghanistan. He gave us two wars that lasted forever. Bill Clinton was supposed to be less war-oriented, and he kind of was, if you don't count Serbia and Somalia. It just goes on in the post-Cold War era. And so Trump has a great record to run on in that respect, that he did not make the mistake of getting us bogged down in some new war. He hasn't pulled us out as much as I think some of his non-interventionist fans would like, but it's still a much better record than Joe Biden, who's backed almost every war known to man. They should be talking about how Biden has been a warmonger, not Biden the socialist. That's not a credible message.
But that's bipartisan. That's the problem.
Yes. It's the institutional party. And then talk more about trade. This is a guy who Obama said he was going to renegotiate NAFTA. Trump.
I think the way I look at it is, I take one step back, but I mean like 50 steps back, and look what's going on here. Trump ran against the system. He ran against an ideology. This is YouTube, so I could say it. God damn it, do it again. Okay?
Exactly. And the gift he has is he's
frustrated because what works, And that is not a partisan issue. I mean, he's attacking the establishment. He's attacking institutions that have wrought this disaster upon the middle class and fabulously enriched a tiny minority.
But let me just ask both of you, why then are the Republicans and Trump himself, why are they running this bizarre campaign of portraying Biden, a neocon, a neoliberal, whatever you call him? Why are they trying to show him to be some kind of a reincarnation of Stalin, Mao, and Pol Pot? And at the same time, they are suggesting that he's a good friend of Robert Byrd and the KKK and every white racist of the last half a century. Why would they think that this is an effective campaign? Neither is believable. Nobody believes that Biden is some kind of a closet racist. Nobody believes he's a closet pocket-sized Stalin.
Short, before Robert answers, this is one of the biggest problems Trump has. They don't know how to effectively attack Joe Biden. Go ahead, Robert. Sorry to interrupt.
Exactly, because to me, it was even Kyle Kalinske on the left and other people have been pointing out, the way to attack Joe Biden is he's a dumber version of Hillary Clinton. That's what he is. So he's got all the corruption of the Clinton Foundation and more so. I got stories about Joe that someday I'll tell while he was vice president. People who pitched to me things that could happen if donations were made to Joe in criminal cases. Unbelievable. So his reputation in that regard is widespread. And of course, it's implicated in China, implicated in Ukraine, hot button issues that he could talk about, Trump could talk about. The key, Trump has had one great weakness throughout his administration, which is his choice of staffing. HR. And so he has put because he thinks from the business world, he went and found people that were experts in the business world when he hired them. So he did the same thing. The problem was he ran saying, look, the problem is we keep hiring political types to do jobs that need apolitical types. And then he went and hired a bunch of political types with long resumes, and that was exactly who not to hire. So his entire campaign team is a joke. They all are from the establishment script. They don't want him talking about issues related to opposing the war. They don't want him talking about issues related to trade. They didn't like it when he started talking about pardoning Snowden, not realizing that non-interventionist vote, which was the key swing vote that put him right over the top in the upper Midwest, there was a direct correlation between the amount a community had been impacted by war over the past 20 years and losing soldiers and how much they swung from Obama to Trump in the Midwest. And that was not a coincidence. So he's got to get back to the populist core. He's got to get and Biden's a perfect foil for that message.
What I find really frustrating, and George knows this because I vent it every single time, is that being a populist, you have permission to go to the left of the establishment, okay? Now, these executive orders that Trump signed, was it a week, 10 days ago? I applaud him for that, but it's a clunky way of doing things, okay? Only 2 states are actually signed up to do it. I think North Dakota says they're not interested, and 38 of the states don't know how to implement it, and plus they have to have a supplement that they don't have to add to the federal money, which Nancy Pelosi won't pass. So I applaud the president for effort, but he has the bully pulpit. He should have been doing this months ago, and he should have just shamed Chuck Schumer and Nancy and McConnell. I mean, every single day, instead of arguing with Joe Scarborough, shame these people and say, I'm going to save the heartland of this country, and go ahead and sue me. You want to sue me for helping the middle class? Try it.
But that, in fact, goes back to the beginning of the Trump administration when people expected him to come up with an infrastructure project. That would have been exactly the sort of thing that a populist, somebody who looks upon government intervention favorably, that's what he would do. Instead, he went for the tax cut and the repeal of Obamacare. Neither was particularly popular in the country, and of course, Trump was punished in 2018. So one would have thought he'd learned his lesson from that, but it doesn't look like it.
No, I mean, I think he's never fully embraced the reality that by embracing the Paul Ryan legislative agenda, not the Donald Trump legislative agenda, that's what led to 2018 going Democratic, which in turn led to him not being able to get anything done legislatively the next 2 years and impeachment. But it's because there's nobody around him. Like once he lost Bannon, But you could have different views on Bannon, but he needed someone like Bannon, similar populist instincts, similar populist impulses. Great presidential campaigns have always had this. Bill Clinton, James Carville in 1992, Ronald Reagan, Poppy Bush, Lee Atwater, Richard Nixon, Kevin Phillips, one of the great populist political analysts in America.
Yeah.
And so all of them, but who is it that's in Trump's campaign? And I get Trump. Trump has the best populist instincts of any president that's probably run for office since Truman. In terms of Truman's reelection campaign was very populist. Administration not so much, but his 48 campaign was that way. And I think that's what's going to keep Trump alive is his own instincts and the fact that Biden is such a useless foil. I mean, the guy literally can barely function. They're going to run a campaign from the basement. I mean, that's what I keep coming back to, why Trump is in still good stead despite his campaign inadequacies.
I want to go back to something we said earlier, because I think it's so important, is that when you talk about the fear of socialism, well, you have millennials and all the rest of them say that's exactly what they want, okay? And on top of it, when Kamala Harris got the nod, Wall Street went crazy. These are not socialists, okay?
Oh, exactly.
They're neoliberals on steroids.
Exactly. Like, I'm telling people, socialism sounds like change. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things not to associate with Biden. Don't make Biden, like, that's where I liked Don Jr.'s speech. He says, hey, Biden is the Loch Ness monster of the swamp. That's the approach against Biden. He's an institutionally corrupt, war-loving, bad trade dealing, Wall Street embracing, Silicon Valley deferential corporatist. That's who he is. He's all that's wrong with institutional American politics in the last 30 years, particularly as to those issues that motivate working-class swing voters that are persuadable whether to vote and who they're going to vote for in the Midwest. And if I was running the campaign, that'd be 80% of the messaging. Yeah. Let 20% be, hey, look, Donald's a nice guy, and the suburban mom, you can vote for him because his wife loves him and his daughter loves him, and we got a little rainbow coalition of our own. That's fine, but that should be 20%, not the majority. And this fake he's a socialist, it's never going to work. People know Joe Biden too long. It's not going to stick. It doesn't resonate in the way people think it does. And if you're going to hit him on criminal justice reform, hey, he locked up all the black men as a message to black men not to vote for Joe Biden. That's the target audience there. It doesn't work to turn around and say, really, he's going to restructure the system in a way that actually a lot of that audience would like. So that they have inconsistent messaging because the whole political class is run by the professional class. And on the Republican side, that's a bunch of rich kids from the Ivy League who have no clue about the real world. And it's Trump's one.
No, there's also a problem that if you're going to attack him for locking so many people up in the 90s, you can't then talk about the disorder and the chaos and the violence in the cities today, and with the obvious implication that we need to lock up a hell of a lot more people than we're locking up right now. So again, confused messages.
Yeah. Yes, correct. They have to have a consistent messaging, and the disorder is going to redound to Trump's benefit extraordinarily. I've been telling my Democratic friends for a while, as soon as that started going a certain direction, I said, I've seen this script before. It's 1968, and we went from liberal dominance in 1964 to all of a sudden Dirty Harry movies and Death Wish movies by 1971. And I said that was a massive cultural shift. It ended up impacting the law. Civil rights went out the door for about 20 years. We went from Miranda in the 1950s to it's okay to kidnap people from Mexico by the 1980s. So that legal shift was because of the broader cultural political shift. And I agree, they should have a consistent message, which is the reason why the Biden is because he's incompetent and because he's corrupt, and he's a dumbed down Hillary, and what he'll get you is rioting and looting.
What is it? I can't remember.
I'm sorry, I'm afraid. Fascinating discussion, but time has run out. So thank you, Robert. Thank you, Peter. We'll have a lot more shortly.